Hey everybody, it's Laura Muir of Create Joy Project. I am a designer for Moda Fabrics and I'm in their pop-up film studio here at Fall Quilt Market in Houston. And we are going to be showing you a really fun project, wrapping your own twine out of fabric scraps, which is a really fun way to just utilize those scraps that you just never know what to do with. What you need for this project are just fabric scraps. They can be of varying lengths. What you need to keep in mind is keeping the width of your strips of fabric the same width as you're moving along your piece of twine. So as you can see, there are multiple different strips of different fabric colors that are joined on to create a really long piece of hand-wrapped twine. And we're gonna just go over all of the steps that you need to create this yourself. I have a basket here of 1-inch fabric strips. I have pre-cut these, but you can also work from just a bundle of fabric scraps and cut them into strips as you go, depending on what you have available. So to get started, you're going to want 2 pieces of fabric strips, and you're going to just tie them in a basic knot with both of the pieces together. And I like to work off of a basket because it gives me an anchor point to hold onto my project. So once I have a little knot here, I'm going to tie it onto my basket with the knot on top, and you'll see how invaluable that is as we go along. So you've got your 2 strands here. I've learned a couple of techniques creating this rope that I feel like make a little bit of a difference in your final project. I'm just going to walk you through step by step how I go about this, even though there are many different ways to make fabric joins and there's many different ways to make twine. This is sort of my personal favorite way to go about it. One thing to remember is you're going to want to kind of keep tension on these strips as you're wrapping, and that will help keep the right side of fabric facing out, and I'll show you how I go about that. I take the strip on the right and I'm just going to fold it into thirds, and this doesn't have to be super precise, and as I pull tension it kind of holds that in place, as you can see. And then once I get that folded in thirds, I'm just going to do a tight twist, and you're going to be twisting both of these strips of fabric in the same direction, and that's one thing that's really important. You don't want to be twisting opposite or you won't keep a tight rope. It will just come unraveled. And this is sort of like a braiding technique. If you're familiar with a twist braid, it's that same concept where you're twisting both of the fabrics to the right or to the left and then crossing over in the opposite direction. So in this case, I'm twisting to the right. And I like to get a couple inches of a tight twist, and then I'm going to cross over to the left, grabbing this other strand of fabric with my center finger. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side while holding the twisted tension in the other fabric strip. So then I'm going to pull tension and fold this into thirds, and this is just jump starting your 2 strands into a tight twist. So you can see that these are both twisting to the right, and then I'm going to start crossing over to the left. And as I go along, I'm going to do a half twist or mini twists with my pointer finger and my thumb on each of these strands as I go. So I'll do a mini twist and a crossover, mini twist, crossover, mini twist, crossover. And that allows you to keep twisting down the strands without having to rearrange in your trifold. And then you'll see that it will kind of braid up and get caught in a knot on one end, and you're just going to pull it through and untwist those ends until you're ready to refold in your thirds. So I'll take this one on the right and fold it into thirds, and then you can wrap it around like that for your twist, or you can just kind of hold tension and twist. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with. I like to get it started and then do my mini twists and fold over, mini twists and fold over. And now one thing that does make a difference in this is having slightly damp fingertips, and that's going to give you a little bit of added traction while you're holding onto this. So if your fingers are really dry, it will get a little bit slippery and just a little more fiddly. So if you want to be super classy and you're going to be doing this for a long time, you could get a little bowl and dip your fingers in the water, or you can just, be your average Joe and lick your fingertips and keep moving. Because I am, pretty chill like that. I do the lick the fingertips method, unless I am going to sit down for hours, and in which I would probably want a little bowl of liquid. as you go along, you're gonna see this twine start coming together, and I really like the contrasting colors in this twine. You can see that I have a dark blue and then a light ground fabric so that it really highlights the twist. Or you can do color contrast, not necessarily light to dark, but just a fun color combo so you can see that. And I do see people who do it all in one fabric strip, and that is totally beautiful too. It's just a little bit of a different look. You're just gonna work your way down the fabric. And as you can see, I have these strips made from width of fabric, so these strips are all the same size. And that's not always the case when you're working from scraps. So one thing that you want to take into account is as you're starting, you don't want both of the strips to be the exact same length. If I'm working with width of fabric strips, I will take one strand and I'll cut probably 7 to 10 inches off of that, so that one of the tails is shorter than the other, and I'll cut it at an angle. So that as you work your way down these fabric strips, you're gonna end up running out of one of the fabrics before the other. And that is important because you are gonna want to join on your fabrics with these strips, and you don't want two joints at the same point in your fabric twine or it will be too bulky. So as you work your way down, you'll come to a point where you're going to want to join on your fabric. And I've got an example here where my fabric is just about to run out on one of them. So I'm going to shift over to this fabric twine and show you what we do when we get to that point. One other little fun thing that I like about working off of a basket is as you move down this fabric twine, it's harder to keep tension because it will come closer to your body. So I keep a slip knot on this fabric on my handle, and as I need to pull it up to tighten it, I just pull the tail end up until I'm back to where I'm working, and then tie my slip knot in again, pulling it tight so you have another point of tension on your basket that you can work from, and then your tail will just keep getting longer and longer as you go. Okay, so now we've got our two fabric strips and one of them's about to run out. So we're gonna show you how to make a join here. And there are several techniques, but my personal favorite is a joint that doesn't only connect with one of the fabric strips, but wraps over into the second strip and creates a really, really tight joint that will be really secure, and you're not gonna have it coming unwound. You're gonna want some little snips, and you're going to make sure that you leave about 1.5 inches of fabric on the end of your strip that's about to run out, and we will cut it at an angle. And the reason for the angle cut is it's going to reduce the bulk on this fabric joint and keep it as close to the width of your twine as possible. So then we're going to pick our next fabric. Let's see, we'll go with this cute stripe, and we are going to trim one of the ends of this fabric strip at an angle as well, which again will just reduce the bulk of your joint. So you wanna, I am more comfortable joining on the right side, and of course if you're left-handed or right-handed you can do it either way, but I will take the little strip on the right and I will lay this fabric underneath it so it's just laying on top of your fabric strip with the wrong side facing you. And then I'll use my thumb and forefinger to hold the joint point, and you'll see that I have 1 inch to 2 inches of a tail hanging out the other side, and that's really important for that double joint method. We're going to hold this tight with our thumb and forefinger, and we're gonna do the fold just like we've been doing on the twine thus far, but we're nesting this little tail on the inside. And then we're gonna twist to the right. And you wanna just make sure that you get this really tight and you're holding onto this center joint point so that this doesn't come undone. And once I have this twisted, I'm going to switch to my other finger and thumb, and we're gonna work on this other side. So it's a little bit fiddly here where you need to keep tension and you need to hold on to that point. And then we are going to open up this second strand, and we don't want to layer it so that the little tail's on the bottom. We want to take the little tail and nest it on the top. So there's a little twist there. And we are going to do the same thing we did on the other side. We're gonna fold it in thirds, and this does not have to be an exercise in perfection. It's okay if some of the tail peeks out in your twist. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you're just gonna get a tight twist, and you can see how you're joining into this fabric strip and this fabric strip. and you're wanting it to be really tight in that center joint. So I'll just continue my twisting to the right and then my overlapping to the left. And as you go down, you'll feel that you've got a very secure and tight joint in your fabric there, and this little tip will just start to disappear on the inside tube of your new strip of fabric. So as you work your way down, you'll see that your joint point is just slightly thicker than the rest of your twine, and that's okay, it just adds character. But if you get any little fiddly bits that want to poke out or any strings that bother you, you can go in with your snips and just trim those off, or leave them if you like kind of that fuzzy character. Once you get to a point where you either want to pause or end, I'm going to show you what I do. If I'm working on a piece of twine and I need to take a break from it or move on to something else, I will just take this and tie a little slip knot, and that's going to hold my place in the project. And if you just have it decoratively sitting on a little pretty spool, you can leave it just loose and it will slightly unwind on the end, but it won't unwind very far. So you can just pick it back up and keep going. If we want to finish off this fabric twine and we're done with this project, I will tie it in a regular knot with these two different strands, like you would tying a shoelace or something. You'll just loop one through and pull it tight. And I like to kind of pull the edges a little bit and fuss with it to kind of get the knot as tight and small as possible. And then you can trim off your edges. And another way of finishing this off, if you need a flat finish, is you can layer your two layers on top of each other and fold them in half and then hand stitch this or machine stitch this closed. Super easy and very accessible. It can be used in so many different ways. One of my favorite ways to use this is it's fun to wrap things up with that little extra touch of handmade goodness. So if you use like craft paper as your wrapping paper or white paper, you can use this as your ribbon as like a really pretty handmade accent, and it's just a fun way to use this. You can also make rope bowls or rope rugs using this twine, and just keep in mind that you can use really thick strips or really thin strips to create whatever thickness of twine you want for whichever project you're using. So they're basically anything you can use twine or rope for, you can use this for. Thank you so much for following along on this little project with me. Again, I'm Laura Muir of Create Joy Project, and you can find me online on social media with Facebook or Instagram at Create Joy Project, and on my website at createjoyproject.co. I would love to connect with you. Let's be friends and enjoy your crafting.